Today we'll be installing the ridge dropper post with Puget 2x lever. First, start by loosening your seat collar bolts and removing your saddle. Next, remove your existing seat post and cable, if applicable. First, you'll be placing the new lever clamp around the handlebar and hand tightening so it stays in place during install. There's no need to tighten all the way, as you'll be making position adjustments later. Now for the fun part, internally routing your dropper cable. As each frame has a different design, we recommend following your frame manufacturer's instructions for routing your internally routed cable. Once the lever is mounted to the handlebar, we'll be measuring our cable length. We found it's easiest to seat the cable housing into the bottom of the dropper without the inner cable installed yet. Push the dropper post into the seat tube to your desired saddle height while pulling cable housing through the front of the frame at the same pace. Be careful as to not pull the housing too quickly, as it will lose connection with the bottom of the dropper and your measurements will then be inaccurate. Remove the end cap of the cable housing by pulling on the cable end. Holding the cable housing to the lever's barrel adjuster, make sure you have enough cable housing to turn your handlebars completely by 90 degrees. This ensures the cable won't be too tight if the bars were to twist during an accident, or so long that they're just sitting there flopping around during your ride. Cut the cable housing at the same spot you held to the lever's barrel adjuster. As they say, measure twice and cut once. Next, you'll be removing the dropper from the frame while pushing the cable housing back through the bike. Insert the inner cable into the housing starting at the dropper post end of the housing. Place the cable end into the bottom of the dropper post. You'll see a slot where you can slide the inner cable through while pivoting so that the cable end sits in the actuator cradle. Next, insert the dropper post back into the seat tube while pulling cable housing through the frame as you did before. Feed the cable through the housing end cap. Next, you'll be assembling the barrel nut. Please note that these can arrive as two separate parts, or sometimes the pinch bolt is already installed into the barrel nut. Thread the small pinch bolt into the barrel nut, but not so much that it blocks the hole. Using your finger, position the metal plate so that the barrel nut can slide through the hole in the lever. The metal plate is intended to guide the cable as you press the lever. Rotate the barrel nut so you can see the hole through the cable channel. You will be feeding the inner cable through this hole in a few steps. Slide the cable through the noodle and seat the cable end into the barrel adjuster. The small end of the noodle feeds into the lever body. Feed the inner cable through the hole in the barrel nut until the housing is firmly seated into the barrel adjuster. Adjust the placement of the lever to your liking and tighten into place. Using a torque wrench, tighten the clamp bolt to 2 Newton meters. Make sure not to over-torque the clamp, as this can damage the handlebar, which could result in personal injury or even death. Holding the cable and lever taut, use a 2mm Allen wrench to tighten the pinch bolt until it squeezes the cable. At the same time, you'll want to use a 3mm Allen on the other side of the barrel nut to hold it in place as you tighten the pinch bolt. Check to make sure the lever is firmly in place and that there are no loose parts. If there is play in the lever, twist the barrel adjuster to remove the slack in the cable, but not so much that the post is actuated. Trim the cable behind the thumb pad of the lever with cable cutters to avoid fraying the cable. Place a cable cap over the end of the cable and crimp it with pliers. Lastly, place the end of the cable behind the cable holder on the back of the lever. Next, you're going to reinstall the saddle into the saddle rails and tighten to the desired position. Adjust your saddle so it's centered with the bike frame. And lastly, tighten the saddle clamp bolts to between 8 and 10 Newton meters. Set your dropper to your desired height and tighten the seat collar bolt until it holds the dropper post in place. It's important to follow your frame manufacturer's recommended torque setting for the seat collar, as this varies between manufacturers. With that said, it is time to go shred.